Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Waiter. And look, we're back talking college football action from week two of the college football season. And look, we talked about it. We talked about it a lot last year. We talked about it more last week. Look, it's those weeks you don't expect anything to happen, that things start to happen and things get a little bit crazy. And we saw some awesome games this past week in week two of the college football season.
Yeah, if this past week was considered a boring week, then I look forward to every single week the rest of the college football season if this is considered a boring week. Just to keep it simple, because there's a lot to talk about with some big time wins by teams. But if this is considered a boring week, man, I look forward to the rest of the season then.
Yeah, and let's start off here in the early slate with one of the biggest upsets we saw all weekend. Baylor and SMU go to two overtimes, but a Baylor 48-45 victory here over the number 17 team in the country after playing now ranked number 24 team Auburn super duper close, or well, more close on the stat sheet, less close in actual gameplay. But playing them close-ish. But look, Sawyer Robinson has another huge game here for Baylor. Still hasn't thrown an interception, which I think is really incredible. How many times he's thrown it, how many yards he's thrown it, how many touchdowns he's thrown. To not have turned the ball over yet through the air, I think is pretty impressive and speaks a lot about what we can maybe see out of this Baylor passing offense this year. But I think what's just as surprising for me is how many points these Dave Aranda defenses have allowed in the last 2 weeks. Sure, they win this past week, but I know Dave Aranda would like to see those 40s on the scoreboard start to kind of go away as the season went on.
I'm starting to wonder, are we back in 2015 with the Art Briles offense at Baylor?
Yeah.
Are we back in a time loop right now? It feels like that with this Baylor offense because I watch like, man, how do you stop this Baylor offense? Same time, their defense can't stop anything right now. That's a big issue for them. But the good news is they got stops when it mattered. Look, they got down 14 points in the fourth quarter, and it didn't look good for them at SMU on the road. But two touchdown drives by Sawyer Robertson, then a missed field goal by SMU at the end of regulation gave them the chance in overtime. And I talked about with SMU. I thought SMU was just as talented as they were last year, but their schedule was a lot tougher this year. And you saw that in this game with a pretty solid Baylor offense. And again, this Baylor team was kind of considered a dark horse for that Big 12 this year. And if it's anything like we saw from this game, this Baylor offense is going to give them a chance every single week.
Yeah, I agree. And look, for me, for SMU, like you said, I think it's a talented team, just as talented as last year, but a tough schedule. Look, they started off a little bit rough last year, too. So I think, if anything, for SMU, this is still, hey, lift our chins up. We
Exactly.
played
Yeah.
good against a good team. And look, we got down early last year, and we still made the college football playoff. So look, we're in the ACC. We've gotten that respect from the committee once before. If anything, they should be expecting us to bounce back and make another push for the college football
But
playoff.
but
So your
also the
season's
major
not over.
difference is being they still have to play at Clemson and they still got to host Miami, two teams that they did not have on that schedule last year as well. So that's the big concern with that.
Yeah, but I still think you could even flip that to being we still got the opportunities in front of us to
Right.
make even more of a statement than we did last year. So yeah, I agree. It's a tougher schedule, but if you're SMU, you can't get your heads down now. You did it last year. You can do it again this year if you get those big wins on the schedule. But this was an impressive win by Baylor that kind of wakes us up after what we saw from them last week, and it kind of puts us on alert that Sawyer Robertson could maybe be. Look, they talked about it in week one. Robert Griffin III did about Sawyer Robertson maybe being a Heisman candidate. And I kind of laughed at it. Even though he'd had a good statistical night, Baylor was getting the break speed off of him by Auburn. I was like, yeah, right. But after a performance like this, your team wins a game like this, a ranked win on the road. This is the kind of performances that make you think this is a good Baylor passing offense, and maybe Sawyer Robertson should start to enter his way into that Heisman conversation.
I tell you
Obviously, it's going
what,
to take
if they if they
performances
can
like
if
that.
they can handle Arizona State on like two, I think that's like 2 or 3 weeks from now, he goes out and puts those numbers up against Arizona State, who's considered by many the top team in that conference, then then he might definitely be like, okay, like we need to have a serious discussion here about his future, like odds in
Yeah.
winning a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, but let's take a look at another thriller with a Big 12 team. Iowa State winning 16 to 13 versus Iowa. And look, you couldn't have spoke more perfectly about the way this game was going to go down. A low scoring, ugly game. Seems like it always is between these two teams. But Iowa State comes out on top to move to 3-0, and it's been a great start for the Cyclones. And look, you kind of talked about starting quarterback for Iowa last week. And look, the passing numbers still just are not there for this team. It'll be a wonder if maybe we see Iowa attempt a few more passes here in the future. Obviously, they could have used a little bit more of a passing offense in this game.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because this is Gronowski, if you know from when he won a couple or was really good in FCS. I look at him, I'm just like, this is not the guy I saw last year. Like, what happened? I heard some report he was nervous like last week in their week one game. I was like, buddy, if he's nervous about that game, what's it going to be like whenever he plays at Iowa State with on the line? And that's exactly what happened in this game. They couldn't throw the ball. He was getting pressured. They had the one drive where he was able to run it in for a touchdown, but I really felt like once Iowa State scored that touchdown to go up 13-3, I was like, I think this is ball game. You're basically asking this Iowa offense to score two touchdowns to beat them. And at the end of the day, they just got behind by too much. Iowa State got pressure and got it done. And good for Iowa State. Like talk about 3-0 start. They're looking really promising right now with the way things are going. Still plenty of games left on the schedule, but right now, especially with the loss to one team in the Big 12 that we're going to talk about in a little bit, right now they seem to be up there as the front runners in this conference right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look here at Kansas versus Missouri now. And look, this was a game you and I were both excited about, a little bit of a rivalry renewed here. And look, the way this first half ended, close game, but the change in momentum there at the end of the
Mm,
second quarter with the late turnover and touchdown, and then from then on, this game became all Missouri. A 42-31 victory for the Tigers. And I thought Prbula looked awesome in this game. Jalen Daniels threw just turned it over one time. Really still had another good game as far as his season's been concerned. But the way this Missouri Tigers offense looked, it looks like we've got another team that's rising up to that contender status here in the SEC. Because if Prbula and this Missouri offense can keep playing like this, we've got another thrilling quarterback talent in this conference.
yeah, with Kansas, yeah, that second quarter lost them the game because they had the three
Yeah.
straight scores. They're up 21-6. I'm like, dang, they might run Missouri out of the stadium. It felt like. Then Missouri gets the score. Then they get the safety. Then they get the two field goals right before halftime. I'm like, wow, that just went away in one quarter. All the momentum is with Missouri. You saw the rest of the game. But the big thing, Kansas could not run the football in this game. I think they had only like 30 yards rushing in this game. And then you looked at Mizzou. Mizzou dominated on the ground and through the air. Bo Pribula was awesome in this game for Missouri.
Yes.
I hate saying this, but he looked awesome in this game for them through the air and then on the ground too with their two running backs and Roberts and Hardy. They were tough to stop. And it came down to late in the game. The Kansas defense needed to stop. Could not stop the run game for Mizzou. That was the difference. And again, with Missouri, Coach Drinkwitz, they know how to win there. He's since he's gotten there, he has turned that program around pretty good. And you look at it, they got Louisiana Lafayette this week, and then the next week they host potential, depending on how things go this week, potential top 10 South Carolina.
Yeah.
Could be interesting there in Columbia. It could be an interesting year with Bama and A&M still having to come to town too.
Yeah, absolutely. So fun stuff to see there. Still excited what we could see from Kansas later this season, especially in the Big 12 with the way things are shaking up. This is a team that's still playing at a level. They can fix some of those mistakes and especially man up on defense.
Oh,
This is the team that's going to compete in the Big 12.
if Jalen Daniels can just be smart with the turnovers, they're going to have a chance against every single team they play. That is the
Yeah,
only thing that hurt them last year. And turnovers are going to be the only thing that hurts them this year with how good that offense is.
agreed. Then we've got Ole Miss surviving Kentucky. 30-23. Look, this game started all Kentucky. I was worried if we were on I was having deja vu. Are
Yeah.
we watching last year's game? I was trying to figure it out. But then Ole Miss kind of got into a groove. But then we talk about it here in the fourth quarter. Austin Simmons gets rolled up. And
Yeah.
it looked like, fortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be anything too serious. He was back on the sideline, kind of limping a little bit. I haven't heard how his status for next week, but it doesn't look like it's anything serious. But he did not play the rest of this game after that. Fortunately, look, when we think about Ole Miss and we think about this great offense that Lane Kiffin has, we think of the great quarterbacks and their great arms and how well these teams throw the ball. But over the last couple of years, we haven't talked nearly enough about the run game. Quinshawn Judkins a couple years ago. The run game last year was great, and the run game this game is great, and that's what ices and wins Ole Miss the game here after Austin Simmons goes down with the injury. And even before that, the way they were just able to run the ball at will and get first downs and touchdowns, that's really what set Ole Miss different in this game. And sticking with that run game, even when they got down 10-0 to start the game, I think was absolutely huge for them winning this game.
Yeah, according to updates I've seen by Lane Kiffin, they said he could have re-entered the game, but they just didn't want to risk anything. So that tells
Yeah.
me that he should be good to go when they host Arkansas this Saturday. But really, I look at it. You talked about we haven't talked a lot about this Ole Miss run game. We ain't talked a lot about this Ole Miss defense and how it's gotten a lot better since Lane Kiffin first got there. Had multiple
Agreed.
turnover on downs for this defense in the fourth quarter against Kentucky, and they were able to run the clock out, go get a field goal late, and really run the rest of this clock out, given the chance by that defense. And again, that's something I've been more impressed with in the last couple of years with Ole Miss was with Lane Kiffin's offense. We know it. It's so easy to run. It's so creative. You feel like you're going to be able to score 30, 40 points. It's can the defense hold with him the past couple of years, but the defense is getting better and better, and it's giving them a chance. Look, we'll see what they do. The defense is going to get tested against an Arkansas offense this Saturday that, even though it's been two non elite teams, has looked like a pretty potent offense through the first 2 weeks. So we're going to see what that defense will look like. But it's a good win here for Ole Miss. Kentucky kept it closer than I thought they would. If they can get those turnovers, and maybe they can steal a game or two this year in the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we'll talk about Clemson's 27-16 victory over Troy. Look, if you're just box score watching this game, you're wondering why I even bring this up. But this was a bad start for Clemson. And look, we were having some pretty interesting conversation during the first going in the first half of this game. Troy started up 16-0 before Clemson rattled off 27 unanswered. But to me, this is more concern than excitement. If I'm a Clemson fan or anybody keeping up with this Clemson team, to start out 16-0 against Troy, look, I mean, just this weekend, you're not going to get that same opportunity if you go down 16-0 against a Georgia Tech team in Atlanta this coming weekend. So absolutely, a lot of things that need to clean up. And again, it kind of makes us beg the question. Look, just a few years ago, no transfers in the transfer portal. This year, only a few transfers in the transfer portal. Dabo, what you're doing right now is not working. I think it's time we need to evaluate the process and why deny yourself. Again, we say this, I've said this a lot on here. Why are we denying ourselves the opportunity to have some of the best college football players in the country by not opening the doors to all these guys in the transfer portal? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And even though they win here, we're seeing again how difficult it can be at times for this Clemson team to get going. They can't keep having bad starts like this all year. This cannot continue. I don't know what else to say about this Clemson team.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If they get off to that rough of a start at Georgia Tech this Saturday, you ain't going to be able to get back in the game. So to me, again, it got to the bad start. The good news is their defense was able to get the turnovers at the end and win. That's not the part that anyone wants to talk about. It's still this offense. It's still the offense that's not there. Again, I have heard for the past 3 years, ever since Garrett Riley got hired from TCU, about how electric this offense is going to be, how amazing it's going to be. Again, I still don't see it. It's not an electric offense. Cade Klubnik still has really not been that impressive against some of the best teams in the country. I Again, you were able to have a pretty solid game running the ball. One of your running backs, I forget probably his first name, but Randall, I think he had over 100 yards rushing. But again, if this is the year, especially I heard that Cade Klubnik was the best guy in the country. Quarterback was like one of the top guys. Like this is for sure the year where he makes a point, and I still have yet to see that point. For his NFL draft sake, I hope we see it soon, so that way he can have a chance to make a lot of money. But he's going to have to show it this Saturday against Georgia Tech, who didn't even need to play Haynes King last week. So now you're going against a fully rested Haynes King in
Yeah.
that. A guy who, I don't know if you missed our show last week, but pretty much all we said was that he was a dog and that you're going to have to
Yeah.
tackle him. I think the Clemson defense gives them a shot in this game, but the Clemson offense, I'm still having a lot of doubts about. So that'll be the big thing whenever we talk more about that game later.
Yeah, agreed there. Then we have South Florida with a big walk-off victory, 18-16 over the number 13 team in the country, Florida Gators. And look, this was a team that said, rank me. They should have been ranked after last week. And now they definitely made a huge case for themselves to be in the rankings. And look, this has been a great start to the season. Two ranked wins. They've got another ranked matchup coming up this weekend. And look, this is the game plan and kind of the blueprint for these teams that are just outside of Power Four, these group of five teams. You want to compete for a national championship, you want to win that group of five spot, or maybe just win one of those wild spots. This is how you do it. You go out and schedule good and talk about the transfers again. Look, it's been what they've been able to do in the transfer portal. You're talking about, again, getting guys on the defense from Missouri, from Texas A&M. You're putting an SEC, you're putting SEC defensive players on this team. You're going to be able to compete with the best of them. And that's why we're seeing such a good South Florida team. They're scheduling right. They're building their team right. This is the blueprint if you want to be relevant. And I've loved what we've seen from South Florida.
Yeah, I am happy as someone who believed in them last year. I was just a year too early, and then I believed in them again this year. I'm happy to see the success back at South Florida for them with this game. But again, you talked about it. When we saw the schedule, I think we thought, okay, they could beat Boise State. I think that was something we all agreed, like they could beat them. But I don't think anybody's like, listen, if they were to get either Florida or Miami, then they're the number one contender in for the group of five right now. They go in and beat Florida. There is not a team in the group of five or in the country that has a better resume through 2 weeks than South Florida Bulls do. This is the kind of thing where you could lose to Miami this week, maybe lose a game in conference play, but if you win the conference, you're easily going to be that 12th team in the playoff easily because of this non-conference slate. But as much as I talked about South Florida and I loved and cheered them on in this game, I was loving it. We also got to address this for Florida. Um, you know, this is already a disaster for Billy Napier, something I talked about. He's never gotten off to a good start in a year at his time in Florida. And here's another example. You got a group of five team in the American coming in and taking down the Gators at home in a game where DJ Lagway really didn't do much. You had players getting stupid penalties late in the game for spitting in people's faces, for hitting players late. You're basically practically giving them, and then you got Billy Napier just saving all his timeouts late in the game while
Yeah.
South Florida's going NFL. I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? I want to root for you to be good, but you got to give me something here.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm happy for South Florida. I love it for them, and I hope they can beat Miami this week just because, that would be there's no doubt in my mind that they could lose two conference games and still probably make the playoff. But my gosh, for Florida, it's now at the point where Billy Napier needs to win in Baton Rouge this week, and either at Miami or at home against Texas the game after that. If he loses those next three games, which are against top 10 teams, a 1-4 start, you don't got a shot at staying around after that.
No, and like you said, like this is supposed to be a Florida team that competes this year. This is a team that is expected to compete in the SEC. And so yeah, this is not the kind of start they wanted. Another bad start for Billy Napier. And like you said, it could really, really start to snowball these next few weeks. They will absolutely be tested. Then maybe the Dublin curse is real. Army takes down Kansas State 24-21. And look, it has been a bad start to the season for the Wildcats. Losing in Dublin, a bad game last week that they barely edged out and won, and now a loss to Army. So 0-2 against FBS schools this season. Not exactly the start you wanted for a team that many, including myself, have picked to be at the top of this Big 12 this year.
Same here. I mean, yeah, it's not a good sign. Let's just say about that. First of all, shout out Cade Helms, the quarterback for Army, making his first start. 41
Yeah.
carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was awesome. But let's be honest, this Kansas State team should be 0-3. They weren't any better the week before when they
No.
played. I think it was North Dakota, not even North Dakota State, North Dakota, and they should have lost that game too. So yeah, I don't want to say the Dublin curse is real, like you said, but I mean the numbers. Whenever I found a stat online about just like the Dublin teams, the teams that lost the opening game of the season in Ireland. 2022 Nebraska finished 4-8. 2023 Navy finished 5-7. 2024 FSU finished 2-10. And then you got Kansas State, who's 1-2, with loss to Iowa State, now Army, and then barely beating an FCS team at home. Buddy, you're just getting the season started right now.
Yeah.
Again, the big issue is in this game was Avery Johnson again. The passing numbers, taking that next step, throwing the ball just has not been there for him. And guess what? In a game where they struggled to run the ball, they needed him to make big plays through the air to kind of help him out. And in a
Yeah.
game with Army where they're going to run the triple option, they're going to run clock in these games. You cannot turn the ball over and you have to capitalize on drives. And they didn't do either one. So congrats to Army on the bounce back after losing to Tarleton State last week. But boy, oh boy, I'm kind of worried for Kansas State fans what it's going to be like the rest of the year.
Yeah, agreed. This was definitely a big opportunity for this team to turn the corner. But then we saw the miracle of all miracles. Mississippi State almost walk-off touchdown against Arizona State to win 24-20. And look, it's live by the aggressiveness, die by the aggressiveness for this for this Arizona State team because I look, this is it felt I didn't really think about it at the time until I saw a video about it, but this was like virtually identical to the way they lost to Texas in the college
Yeah.
football playoff, just in a like clear passing situation, zero blitz, no help over the top, and just getting beat in one-on-one for an easy touchdown. Um, Look, I get being aggressive. I get trying to put some pressure on the quarterback, but if your corners are this prone to just flop in here at the end, why not have a little safety help back? It feels like at this point we're having avoidable mistakes here at the end of this game. This definitely could have been a much different outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. But also, I want to give credit to Arizona State. Down 17 nothing or down 17-3 at halftime. They came out and made a great comeback in the second half to take the lead. I give them credit for that. In a second half where I think they threw and completed 2, maybe 3 passes. I think Sam Levitt finished with less than 100 yards. They ran the crap out of the football. And Mississippi State couldn't stop them until that goal line stand late in the game to get the field goal in. Again, you talked about the defense late in the game. They had them at 3rd and 9 at midfield. It's like, okay, let's play the field deep here, and then we got the chance to win. And somehow, number one, I don't even know why he's one-on-one. Number
Yeah.
two, I don't get how you let inside leverage happen with no safety help in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Because in that situation, I get playing the sidelines because you don't want them to get out of bounds. They have no timeouts. You want to make sure they run the clock. But if you're going to force them back inside, there's got to be help over the middle, and nobody was there. So um, it's rough for Arizona State. Again, the good news for them is this is a chaotic Big 12, and there's still a lot of different things that can happen in this conference. So we'll see what happens with it. But they got to, number one, get off to a better start. And number two, they've got to make the right defensive play calls. There's times to be an aggressive defense, and there's times to know when to play it safe. Now, I'm not talking about prevent defense. No, don't do that because you're just giving up easy yards to get in field goal range. But I mean, cover two, cover three. Do something where they got to beat you short in order to gain the yards. Nothing where it's going to be a big play down the field. But for Mississippi State, look, me and you both thought this was a team that was improved from last year. And we've seen it through 2 weeks with them. They're an improved team. I don't know how good they'll be this year, but they have already matched their win total from last year through these first two games. So I'm pretty happy for Jeff Levy and them.
Yeah, they've done an excellent job. Then our big game of the week, Michigan, Oklahoma faced off. And look, we saw a pretty good game from an exciting young Michigan team, but overall, Oklahoma comes out with the 24-13 victory here to kind of continue to move their way up the AP poll. And look, this Oklahoma offense, it looks special right now with John Mateer at the helm.
Yeah. Again, the crazy thing is, I don't know what's going on with Jaden Ott. Like, do you know, is he injured or something? Or is he
I have
just
no idea.
because like they've hardly used him at all in this offense. So I
Yeah.
don't know if they're saving him up. I don't know if he's dealing with injuries. I don't know. The good news is John Mateer said, "Don't worry, y'all just hop on my back. I'll carry us to this win," and he literally did. I'm feeling a lot better about my Heisman pick for him right now with the way he performed in this game. But this is exactly what we talked about with this Oklahoma team. We knew how great this defense was going to be under Venables. We knew how great it was going to be. And they shut down this Michigan team. What, Michigan had the one breakaway play for a touchdown to open the second half. Besides that, it was just field goals. All the Oklahoma offense had to do was connect on a couple more drives and play a little bit more aggressive with John Mateer, and they won this game. So that is what it's going to take right now for Oklahoma. And again, with some teams losing in the SEC right now, things could get really interesting for Oklahoma. Again, all the SEC teams, let's face the fact though, all the SEC teams that they have to play the rest of the season are now ranked.
Yeah.
Every single team that they play the rest of the year in the SEC is ranked. So the schedule is going to be insanely tough. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for them. It is going to be insanely tough. But if you come out of that schedule 10-2, I don't want to say 9-3 because we saw the whole drama with 9-3 last year, but I think
Yeah.
if you come out of that 10-2 in that schedule and maybe don't make the SEC championship, you'll get in based on that schedule. But for Michigan, again, the offense is just a little bit of ways behind. Bryce Underwood at points just didn't make some good throws down the field. He was overthrowing here and there. They had some big runs from Jamal Haynes here and there. But again, it's a team that just needs more time to grow up, I think. Again, it's a pretty young team. The interesting news, don't forget, though, Sharon Moore begins his 2-game suspension now. So he's out for Central Michigan and then when they play at Nebraska. So we'll see what Michigan does in these next 2 games. But, I mean, this is a loss that hurt them, but you got to feel good if you're the Sooners right now.
Yeah. Agreed. And then the final game we'll take a look at here from the past week, UNLV with maybe their best win of the season, a 30-23 victory over UCLA. And look, Nico and this UCLA Bruins team do not look good right now.
Mm-mm.
And look, the worst part is the biggest mistakes and the biggest blames in these games are falling on Nico himself. He's the one that on the last drive of the game is throwing a tip drill interception in the middle of the field to about 3,000 UNLV defenders. Um, he's out of rhythm right now. He looks uncomfortable. Overall, statistically, looks like a better game, more yards, better completion percentage, and some rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. But still, a costly interception at the end of this game. Whereas I think UNLV has played their best game so far of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they got up 23 nothing on them very quickly. So, I mean, UCLA was playing from behind from the get-go. And, I could sit here and feel bad for Nico, with some of the situation. I'm not going to, though. I'm not going to sit here and feel
Yeah,
bad for him. He walked into a situation, he walked away from a situation in Tennessee where he felt that it wasn't made for him, that the pieces around him weren't good enough to succeed. How are things going to UCLA? Are they any better? You're over there 0-2 while Tennessee's literally hosting game day this week against Georgia.
yeah,
How do you think that's going for you, buddy? So, okay, it sucks for them, but you're actually right. This is UNLV's biggest win of the season. And based on the rest of their schedule, it probably will be their biggest win unless they can go and beat Boise State on the road. But it's a good win for UNLV UCLA. I don't want to say they'll be completely bad the rest of the year. They have a couple of winnable games on their schedule still. But if they lose those winnable games, oh boy, this might turn into Nico being gone from UCLA in 1 year. Uh,
yeah.
I, I'm interested to see how that plays out, but good win for UNLV.
Agreed. So now let's take a look and talk about our teams and player of the weeks. Go ahead and give us your top five teams of the week.
So at number 5, had to put Baylor on here for the win on the road against SMU. Really tough performance there. Number 4, Oklahoma. Again, I love the performance by John Mateer in this defense to get a win in the only ranked matchup there. Number 3, had to put Army for going on the road, taking down a Big 12 opponent after losing in just embarrassing fashion the week before. Number 2, Mississippi State, easily for the Miracle in Starkville. I don't know if that's the official title for that play. If so, I trademark it right now. So don't even, I want all the royalties from that if they do decide to make a shirt for it. But number 1 is South Florida, easily going in on the road in the swamp. And I had not picked this number 1 just because this was like one of my like fun picks at the end of the
Yeah.
show last week. But look, they went in the swamp. They got a couple turnovers, couple big plays here and there, and they were able to get out of there with the win. And like I said, easily have the best resume, not just in the group of 5, but in the entire country through 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's an awesome start to the season for them. I don't think anybody else in the country has two top 25 victories
Yeah.
under their belt thus far. Um, my top five, and number five, I went with UNLV. Like I said, I thought this was their best performance. This is kind of the game we were more looking for from UNLV to start this
Right.
season. And they just looked way more comfortable. I really like this game from Dan Mullen and UNLV. And to me, it shows they're about business. And even though right now it looks like USF is running away with that spot for the group of five team, maybe they slip up, or maybe you can play good enough that you can outplay one of these other teams for that 12 or 11 spot uh, in the college football playoff. It's not completely over just because USF gets the last conference champion spot. And right now, it looks like USF might not be the last conference champion either, with the way they're playing. Um, but at number four, I went with OU. And look, it was the only ranked matchup, but they were just leaps and bounds better than Michigan.
Absolutely.
Just as good as their performance was, I couldn't put this any higher than four. I love the performance. I love the effort from Oklahoma, but it just felt like they were better the whole time. And I don't think a lot of people that weren't rooting for Michigan in this game expected a different outcome than this.
Mhm.
I think this was kind of the expectation for this game. At number three, I went with Mississippi State. This was an awesome, awesome game to watch, to witness, to see the end of. Mississippi State is absolutely turning a corner to start this season. At number two, I went with Baylor. I thought this was a great bounce back from a game against Auburn, where they were just as aggressive offensively, and this time that paid off and allowed them to win this game, even though the defense is still showing some question marks. And then number one, I went with USF. I think I've got to give it credit as the biggest upset of the weekend just because I thought they should have been ranked, but if the AP poll really thought that after last week this team shouldn't be ranked, they wore that. They took that into Gainesville, and they got a huge win in the swamp for a team that is supposed to be competing for an SEC title this year. They went out and earned that spot in the rankings. And we'll talk about the AP poll in a minute, but it was awesome to see the AP poll kind of reward them and not just say, here's 25. They said,
Yeah.
here's a top 20 spot. So it was awesome to see that they really did kind of get the payment for going in, beating an SEC school at home, and really kind of earning that right. But all over social media, pretty much identical. USF and Baylor taking votes on the polls, and that allows USF to be our overall winner for Team of the Week. Feels like everybody kind of feels the same way we do about it. Easily the biggest win of the season and a great start. Better start than anybody else has got right now.
Yeah. Again, they absolutely deserve it. I'm happy to see everyone agree with it on social media for our team of the week. Just happy to see it for South Florida. Gotta love it for them.
Yeah, now take us through your top five players of the week.
So, top five players of the week. At number five, I went Deuce Robinson from Florida State. My reasoning for putting him in here was he decided to literally put up a Randy Moss level like stat line in this game. I think it was what, four catches? No, five catches, 173 yards, and two touchdowns. Every time the guy got the ball, it was an explosive play. I mean, averaged 34 yards per reception. I mean, like, come on. Had to get him in there. Number four, I'm going with Cam Cook from Jacksonville State. Spoiler this week, something we didn't talk about. Conference USA's chances of being the group of five champion are basically gone with Jacksonville State taking down Liberty. Cam Cook
Yeah.
was part of it. 195 yards rushing, multiple touchdowns in the game for Jacksonville State. Number three, got to get my defensive player in here. Tomatoa McDonough, the edge from Iowa State, had back-to-back sacks in the final minute of that game in Iowa State versus Iowa to help steal the win for the Cyclones. Had to show him love. Number two, Sawyer Robertson, like we talked about, balled out, was amazing for the offense. Really, so far through both weeks, he's been incredible. But number one, I had the line for Cam Scattaboo last year. If I find a new one for him this year, for John Mateer, I'll let you know. But number one on the field, number one in my heart, John Mateer's number one. Literally carried the Oklahoma offense on his back in this game, running the ball, making big throws down the field. He was easily the number one player to me.
Yeah, that's awesome list. Some great performances. Uh, For me, at number five, I started with Philip Harmon, DB out of Navy. Look, I really was kind of impressed by this performance, where he was all over the field, had a ton of tackles, one interception and one forced fumble. This guy was making plays all over the field against UAB. At number four, I went with Anthony Calandria, QB at UNLV. He's been off to a rough start to start this season, but for him to go over 250 yards, three touchdowns, and no interceptions with his best completion percentage of the season. Again, a big breakout game for UNLV. I was impressed. This was the performance we were expecting to see a lot more of out of UNLV. At number three, I went with Bo Pribula out of Missouri. Look, like we talked about earlier, this was an awesome performance and a great game early in the season, facing off against a Kansas team that looks like they might be a force in the Big 12. To go out there and have this kind of big statistical night and to show that you're one of the quarterbacks who should be being talked about in this action-packed SEC and this really log-jam at quarterback in the SEC. Feels like every week we're having to alternate who might be the best quarterback in the SEC because there are so many great guys and great performances. And Prabula definitely adding his name to that list. At number two, I went with Kawan Lacey, running back from Ole Miss. Look, the running game all around for Ole Miss was phenomenal
Mm-hmm.
in this game, but this was the leading rusher, 132 yards, one rushing touchdown. Awesome performance by a great running back room, but spearheaded by Kawan Lacey. And at number one, I went with Sawyer Robertson. I had him in my players of the week last week for having a huge performance, or maybe I didn't. Maybe because he lost, I didn't. But I wanted to put him in this list last week. I get the opportunity with an even bigger statistical performance and a victory over a ranked team. Hard not to tip your cap to that kind of performance. But when we go to Instagram, Sawyer Robertson getting votes as well as John Mateer. And then on Twitter, purely Sawyer Robertson. The fans have spoken. Our winner of Player of the Week, Sawyer Robertson, quarterback out of Baylor. Huge performance. Gets a hats off here from the Bull Take podcast and the fans.
I mean, I won't sit here and act like I'm not butthurt that John Mateer didn't win. He
Yeah.
was robbed, I tell you, but no, no. Sawyer Robert, he deserved it. It was a great first 2 weeks of the season for him. And hey, this year in our Player of the Year talk, last year it was wrapped up by what, week 4, I think.
Yeah.
This year, through the first 2 weeks, it feels a lot more wide open. But right now, I think the early favorite is Sawyer Robertson if he can keep up this level of performances.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be hard to ignore 400 plus yards and 4+ touchdowns
I
every
mean, like,
week.
come on.
If you keep that up, and especially with no interceptions. I think that's the thing
Yeah.
that makes me want to put him so high on the list is he's throwing the ball a ton and he's not turning the ball over. I think that's what's so awesome to see about him. But now let's take a look at the AP poll and see where we stand. And with our top five, not too much changing, really just two teams flip-flopping in and out. At number one, still Ohio State, two, still Penn State, and three, still LSU. But at four, we've got Oregon moving up from six, and five, Miami stays the same. I'll go ahead and round out our top 10 here since we didn't have too much change there. At number six, we've got Georgia. So Georgia and Oregon flip flop. Texas stays at seven. Notre Dame moves up one spot to eight in an idle week for them. Number nine is now Illinois. Keeps throwing me off to see them up there. Florida State moves up to 10. So how do you feel about this top 10 kind of rounding out?
Well, let me just say this. A team that we haven't really talked about. I know they played Montana State and Oklahoma State, but Oregon looks good. Oregon
They do
looks
look
like
good.
I know it's just those two teams, but like I'm walking away like they're not just beating them. They're beating the out of them because it's family friendly. I
Yeah.
won't say word for what it is, but they're beating the crap. They're beating the crap out of these teams. So I'm just like, man. And again, the thing is helping Dante Moore not turn it over. They're not asking him to throw 40 times a game, but they're asking him to make some throws. He's connected, and they've been able to run the ball with success with multiple guys. So they've looked really, really good. And I felt confident in Penn State beating them at start of the year. A little bit less confidence now whenever Penn State hosts them in a few weeks. I get moving them up into the top four because of how dominant they've been. Georgia, I'll be honest with you, that game this past week, I don't know what to think about it because the weather delay really kind of threw things off in that game. At the same time, Austin P literally was coming off beating one FBS opponent last week. And they're throwing the ball a lot here. We're going to find out more about Georgia this Saturday. But it's interesting there. Texas, I'm fine with keeping them there. It was good to see them finally score points on offense and know that was possible. But I tell you,
Yeah.
Arch, there's something off still with him. Like again, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen the clip of him throwing the ball. He looks like he's wincing in pain every time he throws the football. So I don't know what's going on there. Notre Dame moving up. Sure, why not? I think it was just kind of with the rest of the teams losing, they had to shuffle
Yeah.
them. Illinois, man, what a second half performance against Duke. First half was not really the best. Second half, they handled business. And then I get moving Florida State up. Got to keep those early teams the cream of the crop, moving them up here.
Yeah, agreed. Then at number 11, we've got South Carolina. Number 12, Clemson. Number 13, Oklahoma moves up five spots. Number 14, Iowa State. And number 15, Tennessee. Thoughts on 11 through 15?
Like, I mean, let's be honest. We were hoping, I think, for Clemson to drop some. I think a lot of people were, but I didn't know if they were actually going to do it. Well, they actually did it. I
Yeah.
give them credit for it. Uh, Seeing Tennessee move up 7 spots, I am so intrigued to see what they're going to do this week against Georgia. because there's a part of me that thinks could they beat them? But at the same time, between Georgia and Tennessee, the best team that either team has played is Syracuse, who is well not an elite team this year. So I look forward to seeing what they can do. Iowa State moving up. Love to get Oklahoma getting the love for the main ranked matchup win. And the good news for Oklahoma, the rest of their schedule is insane. So if they can get to 10 wins there, they'll be in the playoff at the end of the year. So no issues here. I get moving South Carolina back one spot because it wasn't as elite of a start against South Carolina State this past Saturday.
Yeah, look, I'm glad Clemson falls out of the top 10. We're now sitting closer to where they should have been to start this season, in my personal opinion. But really, I think banish them just from the top 25 just because of how poorly they played in this game. That should be their punishment. Their punishment shouldn't be outside the top 10. It should be outside the top 25. I'm still just not thrilled with their performance. Obviously, they're going to get a chance to either prove us wrong or prove us right this coming weekend. But yeah, I like the way these teams have moved. I don't think anything too crazy's happened. At number 16, we've got Texas A&M, 17 Ole Miss, 18 USF, 19 Alabama, and 20 Utah. So starting to see some of our teams slide up. Utah had an absolute routing this past weekend, so love to see them move up. But your thoughts on 16 through 20?
And I'll just be honest with you. I'm happy South Florida's ranked. This team should be ranked in the top 15.
Agreed.
If we're giving them the same level of respect as we're giving Florida State for their win over Alabama, then they should be getting the same level of respect. If Alabama had two ranked wins to start the year, they'd be not top five. They'd be top three already.
Yeah,
So I'm saying give USF their respect. I'm loving Utah moving up. I tell you what, I'm gonna love keeping an eye on this Utah team. They play Texas Tech 2 weeks from now. That's a game I look forward to seeing. How for real is this Utah offense? If because the defense is great, but this offense can keep up the pace they're at, they could be a fun team to keep an eye on this year. Just imagine, Austin, 2 weeks ago, whenever the season started, did you envision that South Florida would be ranked ahead of Alabama in the AP poll?
I did not, but it is just a treat to see. I will tell you that. That is just
Absolutely.
fun to see. At number 21, we've got Texas Tech, 22, Indiana, 23, Michigan, 24, Auburn, and 25, Missouri. Uh, what are your thoughts rounding out the top 25 right here?
I don't get how Arizona State is unranked. Look, I know they lost to Mississippi State. It's at least an SEC caliber team.
Yeah.
I get unranking Florida because they lost to South Florida, but I don't get how Arizona State goes from number 12 in the country to all of a sudden they're out. I think that's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. Uh, Indiana, you can tell early on here, they are not giving Indiana nearly the same amount of respect as last year. They're going to make
Yeah.
them earn it. Good news for Indiana is they've got Illinois in a couple of weeks where they'll finally get tested and against Oregon. So there's that. I like them moving Michigan back. I kind of surprised how far they moved Michigan back, but I'm curious as to how Auburn got in here. I could understand the argument for Missouri with the way they played last week, but I want to see Auburn play, like Oklahoma, which they will also in 2 weeks, before they get ranked. I just think Arizona State is a top 25 team in the country. I don't get them dropping out here at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I wanted to see a team drop out of the top 25, I'd rather see Michigan. I think Michigan looked
Right.
worse than Arizona State did this weekend. And I'm also with you. I'd rather Missouri and Auburn be flip-flopped and maybe Auburn not be in here at all. There are just teams I think are better. Personally, I'd rather see Georgia Tech ranked
Yeah.
over Auburn. That's just one team getting votes. I think really that's my biggest snub out of this top 25 right now. Besides obviously Arizona not being in it, is I'd really like to see Georgia Tech get some respect. Now that'll be again another opportunity to do that this weekend. Really won't have any choice but to rank them if they win this weekend. But speaking of that, let's get into our game previews. Let's start talking about some of the big games we've got coming up
Yeah.
this weekend. And number one, we've got KSU, Kansas State versus Arizona. Arizona off to a 2-0 start. Kansas State seems to be cursed 1-2. They have not won a game against an FBS opponent. Second game here in Big 12 play. What are your thoughts coming into this game?
Um, I don't want to overreact for Arizona. They look better than I thought they were going to look coming into the year through 2 weeks. So again, I get why they're favored in this game. Look, the simple thing it comes down to Kansas State. Number one, can they get Dylan Edwards back? He wasn't playing this past week. If he comes back, I feel like that helps their run game out a lot more. But uh, we'll see. But also weighing out, if they shut down the run game in Arizona, can Avery Johnson make the throws? If he can't, we're looking at a 1-3 Kansas State team come the end of Friday night. So this is an intriguing one. Again, I always love they mix in these little Friday night games. I always love that they do them.
Yeah, agreed. Um, Then we've got the backyard brawl, Pitt versus West Virginia, squaring off. This is always a gritty rivalry game. But what are your thoughts coming into this game with these two
Well,
teams?
first of all, shout out Ohio for beating West Virginia. There was just so many upsets that happened this week; they couldn't make my top five. But
Yeah,
shout out to
I
them for
know.
beating West Virginia in a low-scoring affair. I'm giving the edge to Pitt, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what to think of Pitt so far. I thought they struggled at points in that Central Michigan game. Not that I'm disagreeing. I love me some Central Michigan in them. I think Pitt will win. I think they're the more talented overall team. But with it being in Morgantown and being this rivalry, you can never rule anything out with this kind of rivalry, with how exciting it's been the last couple of years now that it's back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hoping this is maybe an opportunity where we see Eli Holstein play his best game so far this season. I think this is a better team, and he really does need to come out and impress because this is a Pitt team that should be knocking on the door of the top 25. But like you said, they haven't been as great as we would have thought with kind of the teams that they've started the season against. But I'm excited to see maybe he can finally tap into that full potential and full talent and start to get the Panthers a little bit more attention after this game. Then we've got probably the best game that we're not going to be doing a game pick for. Uh, One I think everybody needs to tune into. We've got number 12 Clemson versus Georgia Tech. This is going to be in Atlanta. Uh, this is going to be a grinded out game with the way it's looked so far with Clemson's offense, and we know how Georgia Tech's offense plays.
I'm telling you, hey, you remember few years ago, our theory about 11 a.m. kickoffs in Clemson? It's
Yeah.
another 11 a.m. kickoff. I'm just saying with Georgia Tech, we remember them in this spot last year, upsetting Cam Ward in Miami in this spot. So it's interesting. Again, I think the Clemson defense, I think this will be a low scoring game between two solid defenses. Comes down to, is this Clemson offense going to finally show how good they can be? Or is Haynes King, now that he's gotten a full week to kind of get healthy again after the Colorado game, we're not playing last week, are they going to be able to run through this Clemson defense? I expect it to be a low scoring affair, and I would not be shocked if Georgia Tech won. But again, these 11 a.m. games with Clemson, they can be tricky.
Agreed. Um, and finally, here we've got an explosive but unproven Arkansas offense taking on number 17 Ole Miss, who looks gritty on both ends of the football. But how's Austin Simmons going to be in this game? And how does the offense suffer, if he starts slow or maybe doesn't play at all in this game? Like you said, looks like we're leaning more towards playing, but you never really know. Thoughts on this game?
Well, again, I've already stated my opinion on the Razorbacks. The offense looks potent. The offense had no trouble scoring points on these teams, which gives me confidence that if it is a high scoring affair against Lane Kiffin, that they can keep up with them. But I still have a ton of questions about this Arkansas defense. I know they beat Arkansas State, they handle business, but I, I have my question marks. I have my question marks with the defense. I want to see them try to stop this Ole Miss run game. And if they can't stop this Ole Miss run game, then we might have a repeat of Arkansas Ole Miss last year when what was his name? The receiver for Ole Miss that went off last year. Watkins was like Jordan Watkins or something.
Yeah, Jordan Watkins is exactly
Freaking
right.
dude had what, 250 yards receiving and like 4 touchdowns in that game, I think. I mean, it was embarrassing. So this Arkansas offense can't stop them, or this Arkansas defense can't stop them, might be a repeat of that. So the Arkansas defense, as it's going to be this, looks like this year, is going to be the tell for this game if Arkansas's got a chance to kind of get a statement win here.
That's also what I worry about in this game. Look, like I said, this offense is explosive. Haven't really seen it play against a top team in the country yet,
Right.
but it looks explosive. It's got the pieces. I don't think that's the worry. I'm with you. I don't know how to feel about this defense. And look, I'm not comfortable saying that it's head and shoulders above what it was last year. So we'll see. But if they can't come out and they can't stop Ole Miss, I'm very worried we're going to see deja vu from last year with this Ole
Or
Miss.
it could be the story. Another thing for Arkansas that was a story last year, which is one score games. Shoot,
Yeah.
I need to do the numbers. How many one score games? What's Sam Pittman's record in one score games? I need to figure that out for the next episode. He's lost so many one score games that if we're on the road in Oxford and it's late in the fourth quarter and it's a one score game, I'm going to be sitting there like, great, we're going to be having the same talk again next week if they can't get it done. So it's going to be an intriguing game. I'm going to be sweating it out, no doubt.
Now let's take it and spin it over to our game picks here. We've got three super exciting ranked matchups that I'm happy to talk about. Um, and let's start with college game day. Like you said, number 6 Georgia versus number 14 Tennessee. Who do you got?
See, again, I really don't know what to think about both teams. There's a part of me that wants to go with Tennessee, but I know their two starting corners are going to be out for this game against Georgia. And the pretty solid Georgia receiving core. I, I'm going to give the edge to Georgia, but it's like this much of an edge. Like maybe like this much. It's not a lot. This will probably of the ranked matchups, I do think this will probably be the most closest one as a whole, I think, all honesty. But I'm going to give an edge to Kirby in Georgia. But I look forward to seeing what both teams do in a big matchup because we have yet to see that from either side.
Yeah, agreed. I think with the teams being as close as they are, I'm going to go with the boys from Rocky Top to win
It's
this
fair.
game. This is at home for them, like you said. So I think that's where I'm going to give the edge. I know they're going to be missing a bit, but I think this is the closest we've seen these two teams in a while. And I think
Agreed.
that home field advantage might just be enough for the Volunteers to walk out
Hey,
with a
and
win.
Joey Aguilar again. I don't know if you saw the video of his family like cheering him on in Neyland this weekend. I mean, he's an easy guy to root for. It's an easy guy to root for. So
Yeah,
I'm rooting for him to do his best in this game.
absolutely. Uh, Then we'll go ahead and make this pick and get it out of the way. We've got number 16 Texas A&M versus number 8 Notre Dame. I'm taking Notre Dame, but look, Texas A&M's got a good team, very talented. Notre Dame's defense has got to step up. They've got to get to the quarterback in this game, and they've got to disrupt Marcel Reed. If they can't do that, we're going to have a lot more issues like we did last week. And CJ Carr, look, I know it's only your second game in your entire career, but we've got to learn from our mistakes last week. We've got to grow up. You're going to play another fierce defensive line, and you've got to be ready to make those quick decisions and fast reads. Look, last week or 2 weeks ago, I think he came to those RPOs with his mind already made up what he was going to do. And that led to the interceptions, that led to the pass breakups. Just threw way too many of those RPOs right into the defense. I think he made up his mind. You got to be fluid, you got to be flexible, and your decisions have to be made after the snap, and it has to be like that. So hopefully we can see CJ Carr grow up, but I'm going to pick the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to win this one. Who you got?
Man, this is tough. I tell you what, I see a lot of similarities in the matchup from last year between these two teams. I see it being a low scoring affair, not a lot of points. But the difference right now, or the difference from the game last year, is going to be Marcel Reed. This Notre Dame defense didn't have to go against Marcel Reed last year. So I don't know what kind of factor that's going to put in this game. I will say this. I'm going to give the edge to Notre Dame, mainly because, I mean, let's face it, they get off to a 0-2 start. it's going to be hard for them to get back in this playoff picture with how not how easy the rest of their schedule is. So I think Notre
I
Dame
agree.
knows they need the big win on their resume still to keep up. Because if they fall 0-2 and then they win the rest of these games against teams that are unranked, I mean, there's a possibility that they might be like, you know what? We've seen you in the big games. We might leave you. So I'm going to give the edge to Notre Dame, but Marcel Reed and his legs are going to give A&M a chance to make this game a little bit different from last year. But I envision it a low-scoring game. I'll give an edge to the Irish if they run the ball with freaking Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, we got to bring some more of that out. I agree with you there. And our final game pick, another battle down in Florida. We got number 18, South Florida versus number 5, Miami. Boy, oh boy, am I excited about this game. Who do you got?
Is this the biggest football game in the history of the CW? I think so.
It might
Uh,
be.
I don't think the CW realized when they got Baylor, SMU, and now South Florida, Miami, just how good of games they're going to get here. Uh, you do I even have to tell you what I'm going to do? Last week, I went with South Florida to go into Gainesville and win. You know what? I'm a crazy man, so I'll do it again. I'll pick South Florida to go in and win. Why not? They went into Gainesville, one of the toughest environments, and won. No disrespect to Miami's home field, but compared to Gainesville, it's not even close. So I think
Agreed.
South Florida is going to be able to go in and handle business. I think this will be a lot more high scoring of a game, though, than Florida, because I think this is a better Miami offense as a whole. So South Florida's offense is going to have to keep up in this game. If they can do that, I think they can pull off the upset here.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that, and I knew I was going to do this. I'm also going to go with the USF Bulls.
Yeah.
I like this team after what they did last week. I think they've got the pieces to be disruptive. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Miami comes into this game. But look, they played good against the Notre Dame defense. They had a great week last week, so obviously they're in rhythm. But I like seeing this USF team because they've tested themselves early this season. They're not going to be coming in facing a top 5 team with no preparation or preparation against cupcakes. They've seen 2 top 25 teams. They've defeated 2 top 25 teams. Going in and playing against Miami and defeating Miami, just another step for them. I think they can do it and claim themselves maybe the best team in the state of Florida right now.
Thanks. I mean, this truly is the battle of the who's the best team in the state of Florida, probably until we get if Miami beats South Florida, then when Miami plays Florida State, that will probably be the
Yeah.
ultimate decider there. But I mean, this right now is the battle of who's the best team, maybe.
Yeah. So with that, we've got one last section for us. That's our bet of the week. What do you got for us? I've started the season 0-2, so I've not been any help for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I was about. Well, actually, wait. Did your week zero bet win? I don't remember if your week zero
No,
bet
it did
won.
not. It was this close, but it didn't at the last.
I was about to say so. So technically, you're 0-3, and I've been red hot to start the year, which means it's going to be a disaster. It's going to fall off because I'm 3-0 so far. Um,
Yeah.
so you know what? I shied away from making it my bet of the week last week because the Cyhawk battle was just a given. This week, I'm not going to shy away. This spread is a big fat joke right now. Give me South Florida plus 17. Uh,
I like it.
I get if it's a two-score game, if it's like within 2 scores, then I get maybe backing off it. But they have it opened at 18 and a half and it's down to 17. They think this is going to be a 3-score game? No way. Give me South Florida. I think they might lose by 2 scores, but it wouldn't be more than that, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Look, I've got something else that I think's a joke that I'm picking a bone with because I think you're getting free money here. Clemson being favored in this game against Georgia Tech is absolutely nonsensical. They lose the season at home against LSU. They barely beat Troy at home, and now they're going to have to go on the road in Atlanta against a 2-0 Georgia Tech team, and they're just going to be 4-point favorites? Absolutely not. Georgia Tech money line, easy money. It's plus money right now, so take it. They're going to beat Clemson this weekend. That's what's going to happen. Clemson
And the fan,
has
I mean,
not
yeah.
been good.
And hey, the spread agrees because that way that spread opened up, it was originally 7.5 for Clemson, but it has gone all the way down to 4. So people agree with you on that thing, with thinking that Georgia Tech is going to be able to probably outright win this win. Absolutely, take the plus money there. Take the plus money.
Yeah, you're winning there. Right now, it's the time to cash in and win because this Georgia Tech team will win this weekend. I'm gonna guarantee it. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for us here at the Bulls Head Podcast. Stick with us later this week. We'll have the NFL episode come out, be recording in a couple days. We've
Man,
had
what a Sunday yesterday was. Oh my gosh.
an exciting NFL weekend that'll probably be capped off with a snoozer tonight as we
Oh yeah.
record it. I'm already guaranteeing that the game tonight
I
is
mean,
not going to be
it's got
anywhere.
to live up to the expectations of the game we saw last night. Like they're like, shoot, we got to
Yeah.
follow that thing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But look, that's going to do it for us here at the Bull Take Podcast. That's Austin Wader. I'm Austin Hill, and we want to thank you for listening.